Namaste, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this meditation, a meditation that will help you fall away from the outer world and fall more deeply into the inner world, the inner you. Please begin by making yourselves very, very comfortable. This is your time. Meditation is a gift you give the self. It is an opportunity to fall more deeply into the self. It is an opportunity to detach from the outer world and to fall more into the inner world. As we begin this meditation, begin to watch your breathing. Don't labor, don't push, don't stress. You don't even have to take deep breaths. Just monitor and watch, observe your breathing. Trying to become one with the breath. When we have unhealthy, habitual thoughts, the body follows those thoughts. When we have unhealthy, habitual thoughts, our breathing is interrupted. This affects the oxygen saturation of our cells. The brain needs sufficient oxygen to work well, as do the muscles of our bodies. The less oxygen we have in our bodies, the more stress, the more tension we become susceptible to. So just observe your breath, trying to become more and more aware of the breath, falling more deeply away from the outer world and more deeply into your inner world. Remember that the 3D experience are just experiences, opportunities to know more about you, to understand you. Difficult situations arise that you and I may have become attached to. And here we have an opportunity to observe attachments and to decide whether or not these attachments serve us, represent us, or not. When we recognize that situations, conversations, habits of behavior, or habitual thoughts do not serve us, we have an opportunity to serve the light within. Our bodies will tell us when we are out of alignment, as well as when we are in alignment. We must learn to listen to the body and pay attention to the cues. The ego is that part of our personality that has been sandwiched between the id and the superego. The id represents all of our innate desires and needs, the needs and the desires that are unaffected or unconcerned with what people or society thinks. The superego is that aspect of our personality that has been downloaded by familial patterns, family beliefs, society and their beliefs, our culture's beliefs, our religious beliefs. The superego is the aspect of our personalities that understands that if we do not behave according to these rules set by our families, society, institutions, organizations, and our religions, that is a bad thing. We have been conditioned to believe that going against the norms that have been conditioned into the mind of the superego, we have been conditioned to believe that if we do not behave, then we are not enough. These rules and these programs threaten our attachments to the people that we love, the people that we respect. These attachments, when we are afraid of violating the rules that secure these attachments, we experience fear, anxiety, shame, guilt, and depression. When we have innate needs, and these innate needs clash with the rules that have been conditioned into the superego, we feel the need to run from this clashing. The ego self is that part of our personality that is interfacing with the 3D world. When the id has a need that clashes against the beliefs of the superego, the ego suffers. Often, the ego is stuck between two worlds, trying to be kind and good and satisfy the needs of the id, while also trying to appease other people. When we have a desire that conflicts with what our family believes, what we should do, or what we should be, the fear of abandonment is real. The fear of being abandoned can make us feel shame, guilt. We can develop symptoms of codependency. We can become reactive. We can become sad. We are unable to serve two masters at one time. The question that we often find ourselves asking is, who do I serve? Do I serve myself, or do I serve others? Human beings have the need to bond with others. And when we feel that we are not good enough, or when we have been born to family systems that are not unconditionally loving, when we have been born to situations where love is conditional, and the condition is, do as I say, or I will abandon you, we have an ego that is stuck between two worlds. We have an ego that is often confused. The ego is sensing and feeling the innate needs and desires of the id, and yet the superego is pushing against the needs of the id, bombarding the id with the rules and the paradigms that have been conditioned into the superego. The superego is merely trying to ensure that the ego behaves in a way that is appropriate to the norms that have been brainwashed into the landscape of the superego's narrative. The superego isn't doing anything wrong. The superego is just trying to make sure that we do not end up abandoned and alone. The ego is often playing both sides, trying to make both sides happy, content, and oftentimes this is just not possible. Our quest is to learn to understand what messages we have been conditioned to believe in that do not serve us. Our quest is to integrate and to understand what pleases us and to find ways to integrate more fully the id, the ego, and the superego. Finding ways to recondition our minds to believe what best serves us. Facing codependency means that we face abandonment trauma. We face the possibility of being rejected. We face the fears that arise when we begin to step into our authentic lives. Facing codependency means that we face the possibility of being rejected and abandoned, criticized, minimized, and judged. When we stop people-pleasing, when we stop pretending we are who we are, when we start living out loud, when we start letting go of trying to control how people see us, when we let go of trying to be what other people want us to be, and instead we begin honoring who and what we are. We face all the fears that we have been running from. It takes great courage to be the self, to love the self. As we move forward on the healing path, it is crucial that we remind ourselves to fall away from the outer world, to learn to observe, question, and challenge the beliefs that we have been holding for lifetimes. As we move forward on the healing path, we move further away from needing to please others, and we understand that the journey to love, the journey to health, begins on the inside, loving ourselves in spite of who will not, who has not, and who cannot love us. Our journey is one in which we are hoping to soothe the ego and to help it understand it no longer needs to prove itself to others. We are worthy, we are precious, we are divine, we have always been enough, we will always be enough. We have never not been enough. You are enough. You have always been enough. You have never not been enough. Namaste.